Welcome to a new episode of Opening Bid. I'm Yahoo Finance Executive Editor Brian Sozzi. Like I always say, this is the podcast that will make you a better investor and a smarter leader. Let's hit that timer clock on my stock of the day. I'm going back to the Tesla well. Why? One, because I can, and two, I should, because this rout is getting really bad in Tesla. I got three reasons why this is actually getting worse. Number one, Wall Street is really starting to hate Tesla stock. Mizuho out this week, cutting its delivery estimates on Tesla, not only for this year, but for next year. The analyst in this case citing a deterioration in geopolitics. In other words, Elon Musk involvement with the Trump administration potentially hurting demand for Tesla vehicles. Wall Street has really started to sound the alarm bell on Tesla's deliveries, something to continue to watch. Wall Street is really starting to hate this stock. Number two, and this ties into the analyst downgrade, weak demand or signs of weak demand continues. China reportedly getting 0% APR on Model Ys from Tesla, something to watch moving forward. And last but not least, got to give a shout out to my former colleague at Yahoo Finance, Max Zahn, now at ABC, writing a story about Tesla insiders selling $100 million worth of stock since February. You can go onto Yahoo Finance platform and check out this data. Most of those insider sales are coming from Kimball Musk, Elon's brother, James Murdoch, and Robin Denholm. So insider selling hurting Tesla stock, and I am way out of time, but I had to get these three things in. All right, on to our featured interview of this episode, bringing back friend of the program, EMJ Capital founder Eric Jackson, better known as my Nvidia analysis lifeline. Eric, good to see you, man.
Thanks, Oz. Good to be with you.
Yeah, wow, GTC. I mean, Jensen goes on there. I was on set with my colleagues, Julie Hyman and Josh Lipton. As soon as Jensen came out, he came out in his old school black leather motorcycle jacket. It wasn't that alligator shiny thing he wore at CES. And I'm like, man, guys, this has got to be a bullish indicator for Nvidia. Well, no, it wasn't. I mean, we saw the stock trade down. It's not really doing much here in the pre-market today. Level set for us. What did you see at this event?
Well, I think it sort of reminded me of a lot of Apple keynotes, just both in terms of the fixation of all of us investors, financial media on this event as being kind of the be all and end all for Nvidia, but also there being this sort of knee jerk let down, oh, that's it, reaction where the stock sort of rises into the keynote and then sort of like, there was nothing new here and so forth. I mean, I thought it was chock full of lots of interesting information. Biggest thing, take a step back, is when I look at this stock, it's been flat for almost a year. Coming up May, June, it's going to be about a year that this thing has sort of treaded water just above $100 after a big rise in response to ChatGPT. And so the big question is where, what's going to take it to the next level? And I think the key coming out of the GTC keynote yesterday from Jensen was him saying, hey, we're using 100 times more information, 100 times more compute, 100 times more of our chips today than we probably expected a year ago. And that's going to continue. And so I think that was sort of like the biggest thing. And obviously, a lot of the attention yesterday in the keynote was spent on talking about the next generation of chips and just how much more powerful they're going to become, how much more efficient, how much cheaper from a total cost of ownership they're going to be to run for people that have to build out these data centers. So I think that was the biggest bullish argument for Nvidia bulls coming out of the keynote.
Eric, before I want to get, there's a really complicated technical stuff that Jensen laid out. Before we even get there, over the past 2 years, I would argue there's been a wave of new investors that have gotten to this market through Nvidia. And of course, they're checking Nvidia's stock price on the biggest business platform in the world. That's Yahoo Finance. Got to give a shout out to Yahoo Finance. They, I would argue, don't understand why a stock would go down when a founder of a $1 trillion company is putting out clear products that are way better than AMD, way better than Intel. Clearly, this is a company in the leadership position. Why does this happen? Like, what is the investing 101 breakdown here? Stock goes down as the company that is leading an entire market announces more stuff that will keep them in the lead for the next 10 years.
Yeah, another analogy to Apple is, I think the key question, Brian, is this one-time revenue or is this recurring revenue? That's going to, and then there's going to be another layer of added revenue to come. I think there was a lot of skepticism when the iPhone came out that, okay, you you had a group of people that were mass adopting this device, but so what? Like was that going to continue the next year? Was there going to be another 20% growth on top of that? Was there going to be another 30% growth the year after on top of that? Can we rely on these numbers continuing? And I think that's been the biggest thing hanging over Nvidia stock. And that's been reflected in this sort of contracting forward PE multiple that people have put on this stock. Because people just haven't been sure that the 40 billion a quarter in revenues that we've gotten used to over the last year can continue and go up on top of that. So my biggest mistake, I was on this podcast, I think, I don't know, 6 months ago, Brian, where I said, if you look at the last 5 years and you look at that forward PE multiple for Nvidia has been, we're now sort of way below the mean for what it's been the last 5 years. At some point, you're going to get this sort of bout of optimism where investors are all in and they think like, okay, good times are about to come. And yet we've just sort of seen this continued ticking down in the multiple. I think that's going to change at some point. And I think that's what Jensen was alluding to yesterday in the GTC keynote, is that he's saying like, hey, guys, we are way ahead, like you said, of the competition. One, these chips that we're going to be selling are way more powerful, and we are totally underestimating as a society how much compute we're going to need to kind of respond to the AI demand that's to come in the years to come.
The crazy thing was, Eric, that I believe Intel stock went up, but Intel's so, they're not even in the same stratosphere as Nvidia. I saw what Jensen came out there inking that partnership with General Motors. And I'm just thinking on these companies blowing everybody away. But you make a good point on the iPhone. At the time, you thought, well, we don't know about the cell phone, what it might look like, what it might do. It became a transformational project. Are you in that camp that AI is not going to be transformative? I see this stuff. I see it everywhere. I see it in AI agents. I see the CEOs that I talk to, Eric, using AI agents in their various lines of communication. I see being built into infrastructure around the world. I'm surprised by the level of doubt, I guess.
Yeah, I am too. I think I'm using it more and more in my daily life. I think most people are. ChatGPT is sort of an alternative replacement for kind of traditional search. Jensen was kind of sort of pointing out in a couple of comments yesterday. Hey, do you notice that there's more of a delay when you use ChatGPT over the last couple of months? That's because there's such a surge in demand for this stuff. So yeah, I think it's a show me story. Like people, as much as it's nice that they can talk about it. We inked this partnership with GM, or they trotted out the I think his name was Blue, the robot at the end of the keynote as sort of like, hey, this is where things are going, and physical AI and all that.
They had robots shaking people's hand at the event. You walk. I was watching some posts on X, Eric. There's a robot, put it out his hand or her hand or a hand, shaking hands of people. I'm like, I get what he's talking about in robots. I get it. Yeah,
but I think from a cool-headed investor perspective, it's that all that stuff is sort of like a show me story. The autonomous driving, like I'll believe it when I see it in the last quarter's numbers, kind of a reaction. So I think that that's fine. I think with iPhone though, like two things happened. People eventually realized, wow, this thing effectively is like a subscription, because whether it's a 2-year upgrade cycle or 3-year upgrade cycle for people, eventually everybody's going to keep re-upping and buying the next generation of this device. So effectively, they're on a subscription plan. And then the services got layered on top of that. So I think Jensen was trying to say, hey, you're going to be hooked on these chips. You're hooked on Blackwell. You're going to get hooked on Rubin because it's so much more powerful and more cost efficient to run it. And he was kind of almost dissing like why would you want to buy a Hopper when you can buy the latest Blackwell chip, when you can buy the Rubin chip to come. And I know you'd pointed out, I think, Brian, that maybe he's going to make some comments about China and how they're going to handle export controls. He didn't say anything explicitly, as you know, but that comment about like, why would you want to buy Hopper? In a way, it was sort of like a wink, wink to, like, I'm sure everybody, whether they're in China or other countries around the world, are going to do everything they can, move heaven and earth to kind of get their hands on these latest chips. So that's to come. Is there going to be like an equivalent of iPhone services to layer on top of NVIDIA? I mean, that could be the robots, that could be the autonomous driving, it could be, something like that. The CUDA was obviously sort of taking center stage there and sort of saying, look, hey, this is another reason why we're different from a Broadcom. We're not just sort of pumping out somebody else's chips. Like, we have like a very tight control over our ecosystem, our product roadmap, how everything all works together, and telling that story. And it is a strong, powerful story.
How many companies do you know, Eric, that can come out here on the scale of NVIDIA with the innovation they do and lay out a product roadmap through 2028?
We just haven't seen, except for maybe Apple, a company operating at this scale, with, growing top line, charting out the future for the next 10 years.
Literally charting it out, literally putting on a screen in front of 17,000 people. Here's our product roadmap. Intel, if you could beat this, go give it a try, dude.
Right, with a hockey stick.
Yeah.
Like, this is where we're going.
All right, hang with us, Eric. We're going to go off for a quick break. Lots more to talk about on NVIDIA. We're going to dig into a little tech. We'll be right back on Opening Bid. All right, welcome back to Opening Bid. Calling back in, friend of the show, EMJ Capital's founder, Eric Jackson, all things NVIDIA. We're going to get to tech a little bit. Before we get to tech, Eric, because we don't have all day to talk about this stuff, buy, sell, or hold on NVIDIA. Has your bullish case on NVIDIA been shook in any way?
I think, it's been shook in the sense that I assumed a kind of quick, bounce back, or, like on a new set of earnings, we're going to see like this thing go trade back up to like 40 times forward PE at some point. And that just hasn't happened yet. Right now, given the sell-off after the last set of earnings and the broader Mag 7 decline, I think NVIDIA still looks good on a relative basis to pretty much anything else in the Mag 7. I think it's sort of trading above its recent lows. I think this sort of like let down decline after GTC is probably done, and I think the stock is now due, along with the rest of the market, for sort of a bounce back in the weeks ahead. So I think it can go back to like at the 140s, 150s, and maybe sort of chart new waters to something like 160. Is it going to go to 40 times forward PE though? That might take another year or so. I think once people really see this company sort of the growth of Blackwell, for example, and then start to get excited about Rubin.
What is, Eric? What is the catalyst if this stock is not going to move after another powerful keynote from Jensen? It's not going to move after they lay out a product roadmap through 2028 that is clearly better than everybody else's. Also outlining I would argue, a larger total addressable market for AI than some people thought. Coming out here again, hyping the potential for robots. I knew we knew these things, that's fine, but I think there were some incremental nuggets to the AI story that Jensen laid out. What will get the stock working?
I think it's probably still more applications, which won't come from NVIDIA. It'll come from their partners, their customers, their users of the Blackwell chips. So is it going to be the Palantir has sort of done a good job of like banging the drum. We got excited because there was some news like 6 months ago about Klarna, apparently like laying off a whole whack of customer support people. But when they actually kind of got into their numbers in their recent IPO filing, it wasn't as impressive financially as maybe we expected 6 months ago from what they had leaked out. So I think it's got to be another story like that coming from some company using AI that is seeing just tremendous cost savings and so forth. So I think it's going to come from that excitement, and then the fact that other people are feeling the need to play catch up to those examples, and then obviously they're going to have to buy more chips to kind of get there because of the severe lead times that are involved in producing these kinds of apps. But I think that's going to be those will be the leaders of the parade that will bring NVIDIA out to kind of new highs.
If NVIDIA is not going to work after GTC, can we make a bull case for the Mag 7, which is also off its highs?
I mean, it's got to. I don't think Mag 7s work without Nvidia working. So, and I like I said before, I think they're among the Mag 7. I think they're the one, trading highest off their recent lows. Still have a great story intact, still have great kind of, fundamentals, great recent earnings, great roadmap, like we've talked about. So I think they're going to work if Mag 7 works. Mag 7s have not worked in 2025, so it sort of reminded me of 2022 more. This isn't like a year, the more recent years, 23 and 24, where Mag 7 worked, but a lot of other stocks did not. This year, it's sort of like the Mag 7s are sort of sucking wind and treading water here. So but it's been several months like that now. So I think there's hope springs eternal that this is just like a recent pullback, 10% pullback. It's healthy, and the market can catch its breath and move forward, including the Mag 7 names.
It's not lost, at least on me. We're at the time of this taping, we're going to get a Federal Reserve decision, and the Mag 7 is sold off at the same time as rate cut expectations have been dialed back. Is this sell-off, and I guess tech more broadly, a function of what the Fed may or may not do this year?
I don't think so. I mean, I think, we were due for a pullback one. But, in prior years, like the ones I mentioned, it was rate hikes, or increases that was sort of like the bane of existence of technology stocks, and concerns about that, and higher, as a reflection of higher inflation. So, rate cuts should be supportive, but I don't think in and of themselves, they mean as much when there are concerns swirling around the recession and uncertainty about tariffs and all the rest. So I think, we'll see whether there's some government resolution to that, i.e. like the White House comes out and sort of turns its back on tariff policy, which is probably unlikely, or more likely, I think, we've endured this kind of pullback, and its market sort of decides in its wisdom one day that despite the fact that maybe uncertainty is going to continue, we've had a long enough pullback, and now it's time to go back to work, and the market can move up again, just for its own reasons almost.
In this backdrop where the Mag 7 is not going to work, Nvidia is going to get hit, what tech stocks do you like, and how are you finding them? Like what clears your bar?
Well, I think there are a lot of sort of individual stories where companies are undervalued, so there's an undervalued component. They've posted some recent great earnings that have surprised the market, and so they are sort of marching to the beat of their own drummer. So Root Insurance is one that I've mentioned a couple of times, where not really well known, sort of part of a group of stocks that came out in 21 called InsurTech, that kind of fell flat on their face almost immediately, and got forgotten about, kind of the way like Carvana did. And yet they've had some really, really strong earnings in the last two earnings reports. And the market sort of has to kind of put that into perspective, and sort of said to itself, well, maybe we've totally undervalued this company. So the stock's been on a huge run lately. So those kinds of stories are few and far between. I'm also a sort of quantum fan. We're going to get a quantum day as part of GTC on Thursday of this week. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be interesting, given that Jensen's comments in January were the ones that took the whole sector down, saying that it was like 30 years away. And then yet 3 months later, here we are talking about NVIDIA's quantum day. Doesn't sound like a 30-year out story to me. So all the partners like IonQ and Rigetti and D-Wave Systems are going to be there. What are they going to say? There's a lot of hype there, but there's that this sector, quantum, is still so small that just with a little bit of good news and customer contracts, sort of as we saw with D-Wave earnings last week, these stocks can move a lot.
You're in good company here in opening bid, because Bill Gates said he doesn't really agree with what Jensen said. So, I mean, we're only A-listers here on Eric, Eric Jackson. That's why we bring you on here. I want to get your hot take at the end here. And I remember you were really the first one that told me about a company called DeepSeek. Like months before that whole DeepSeek sell-off came to light, and many people even knew what the company did, I looked it up, and I'm like, okay, I guess I get what Eric's talking about. I push it off to the side. I mean, I discounted it. What else is on your radar? that investors in tech or markets more broadly need to look out on? Well, like what is cool and what's happening?
I think I would say that we've gotten addicted over these last few years to the Mag 7. And with triple ETFs for, single names like, bearish, Tesla ETF, Tesla Q and all this kind of stuff, ETFs. These have all contribute, it's so much part of our, the S&P 500, the NASDAQ 100 and so forth. These have exaggerated kind of, these sort of market moves in these big names. And so I just think that they're great companies. There's a reason why they're so large and cash generating and so forth. But I don't think they deserve probably as much a percentage of your own portfolio as maybe you would have thought like a year ago, 2 years ago, when they were just like, shooting the lights out in 23 and 24. So I think a lot of investors should take a step back and sort of try to discover the smaller names within tech. Tech is going to continue to be the place where people are just drawn like a moth to the flame because of growth expectations. But more cash should be put into some of these smaller names. I think there is going to be a renaissance of these smaller growth names in the years ahead.
In other words, Eric, a message to investors: do your damn homework, read SEC filings, get to know these leaders. Just don't go out there and trade these stocks because your next door neighbor is doing so. EMJ Capital founder Eric Jackson, always appreciate your time. Next time we're going to do this in some black leather Jensen jackets, I think.
All right, deal.
All right, Eric, good to see you. All right, and that's it for the latest episode of Opening Bid. Continue to hit us with those 5 stars on all the podcast platforms: Amazon Music, Apple, Spotify, thumbs up on YouTube. Love all your comments. I really enjoy answering them, provided they are fair and not absolutely ridiculous. We'll talk to you soon.